Okay, very good morning to everyone. Indeed, this is a very interesting topic. How do you combine BCM with cloud computing? So when I was invited for this to talk on this particular topic, I was saying, wow, this is very interesting. I want to jump onto the bandwagon. But a couple of weeks ago, when I started preparing my speech, I said, that's why am I going to talk about this now? All right, but these are the things that I think things begin to change. All right, it's just like any business continuity management, business continuity plan. We have done lots and lots of things in it, but how do we piece everything together? So in this regard, what I'm going to share today is really a little bit on cloud computing, a little bit on for the technologies, innovations that the National Library Board has embarked upon, and how do we really map this in the context of BCM, which is the key topic of today's seminar itself. Now, as we know, libraries within Singapore are all over the place within different corners, right, of Singapore itself. And why is that so? So that it is convenient, it reaches out to our patrons itself. Now, what has it got to do with BCM now, right? With different libraries, there will be ongoing processes whereby we need to do what we call R&R. R&R is not recreation and rest. R&R means we need to do refurbishment, all right, restoration, which means that at some point in time, some of our library will have to be shut down for a period of time. Now, if a particular library has to be shut down, what is going to impact our patrons? In other words, now there are other libraries that they have to go to, right? In itself, it is part of business continuity. Business continuity management, we have the onus that only when something happens, then we start to activate some kind of processes to ensure continuity. However, in another context, business continuity also requires us to ensure that we continue to stay relevant so that our businesses can continue in that context. All right, so within NLB itself, besides the 24 libraries or national library, various branches that we have to support, again, there is a high volume of visitorship, borrowership that we have to cater to their needs. Increasingly, there's also this trend of moving towards e-resources, digitization. All right, so it forces us to rethink our strategy of just providing physical print copies because of the changing lifestyle of our patrons. So in the past, we are the authority. You come to the library, you ask for information, we provide that kind of information to you. However, it has changed today. Library has got to go to the patrons. Now, why is that so? How challenging is this in terms of the whole mindset change? In terms of the business relevance, right? If we continue to say, all right, patrons, please come to us. Well, generally, with the advent of internet, the Google searches, information that is so pervasive out there, very soon we'll lose our patrons, right? Therefore, we have to start rethinking, how do we continue to make our business relevant? In other words, with the changing world, you can either look at it upon as something that, well, now patrons have changed, they are not coming to us, so we are not having the business. But on the other hand, take a look at the other aspect of it. It brings forth a lot of opportunities. How do we overcome that particular, address the needs of the patrons, physical to digital? And therefore, there's the need for us to build virtual, libraries, DIY, and continue to build more kind of opportunities to reach out to the patrons itself. Therefore, we have introduced various technologies. Some of you would have been very familiar with this if you have used the library services from the manual checkup, manual stamping in the past 20 years ago, 10, 20 years ago, to today you do the self-checking. If you have visited the library last year, we have refreshed our RFID technology. Instead of checking a single book at a time, you can put all the 6 books that you borrowed and check all at one go. So multiple checkout to facilitate convenience to the patrons. In terms of courier services, in terms of counter services, going to the counter to borrow books now, you can have your own self-service kiosk to check your accounts whether you owe any fines or so. So if you do, please pay, because if you don't pay, you're not able to borrow the books or any of the library items. From reading on-site now to outside. All right, so it's now online access, e-resources because of the changing life trend, right? As it is now in the context of BCM, again, say, as I continue to present, I got to bring the relationship to BCM, again, continue to stay relevant, all right? And because of the changing lifestyle, it creates a lot of new opportunities for IT to bring forth more new services. And therefore, now in this context, there's this certification in IT and BCM, right? CIT, BCM, right? Certification in IT and BCM. It's actually a combination of IT and business continuity management. Therefore, again, with the changing lifestyle, as we continue to use technology, bear in mind that technology should not be deployed for the sake of deploying technology, but rather how technology can be transformed into a relevant service to your client. And that's where the business continuity will come in. All right? Now, just to give you some aspects of this IT services in NLB, because of the humongous transactions that we are handling per day, and of course, we need to have our core systems to be in place. Basically, we have got 2 data centers, primary and secondary. In case anything happens, at least there's a fallback that it can continue to operate. We've used even various means whereby when we use RFID, we use kiosks per se. There are backup services within each of those services that we provide, right? Just in case if one system is down, there's always a failover to another system. Memories, today we have embarked, I'm not too sure how many of you all have heard of this Singapore memory, whereby NLB is a lead agency, whereby we have set up this particular website to allow Singaporeans, the citizens, to deposit their memories. All right, so during your childhood days, you've got fond memories, buildings, the games that you play, the habits, you are welcome to go to the Singapore Memory website to deposit your memory. It's another form of contingency, As you grow older, you begin to be short-minded, so you forgot what happened in the past. Make use of this facility to deposit your memories, right, into the Singapore memory. RFID technology, many of you have heard about this thing. We were the first library in the world to introduce this RFID technology. Now, as I mentioned, we introduced technology not for the sake of the technology, but translate into a service, which means that first and foremost, you can use that to check in, to check out. All right, check out basically is to borrow. All right, when you borrow the books, it will check whether you owe any outstanding fines. If you do, please pay them before you can check them out. In the system, in the event that the system was down, all right, the main system is down, basically there's an offline mode. So to the patrons, it's transparent. You do not know that the system is down. All right, so you still can continue to check out your books, and when the system resumes operation, you automatically connect back to the main system. Introducing RFID itself within the physical library is just one aspect of reaching out to the patron. The other aspect that we use RFID technology itself is also to incorporate all the technologies that we use on physical libraries onto what we call mobile library, which is our MOLI. Right? Basically, MOLI helps to serve the underprivileged. Right? It goes to some of the special schools whereby some of the students would not be able to afford to travel too far to go to the various libraries to borrow books. So this bus is fully equipped with RFID technology using 3G, using 4G, so that the patrons can borrow the books and return the books, right, when the bus is over there. Right? Now, next thing, in terms of the changes in the various channels of technology itself. For example, search engine optimization and data mining is another area that we have always been embarking upon and looking at how internet can help us to reach out to the patrons. As we know, today's lifestyle of most people is that if you were to look for certain contents, the first place that you go into is probably Google. All right, you type in certain text, and you hope that the information will be there. You read only an extract. In this context, we leverage on Google itself as another search engine, whereby when you type a certain text, and if it's relevant to the Singapore content, we make sure that our pages, the content is now within the first page of Google, so that it's highly searchable. And we click onto that content, you go direct to that particular information. All right, so again, making ourselves relevant to the patrons itself. And when we started off with this particular endeavor, we realized that in terms of the page views that we've reached, that we have managed to reach out to the patrons, have increased from 400 per month to 175,000 page view, right? Just now we also mentioned about big data, data analytics. Again, to remain relevant, all right, to the patrons itself, we have to now connect data to people. Right now, we are now working on this particular principle of connecting people to people, meaning that patron A reads a certain book. Patron B knows that, oh, yeah, this is my friend patron A. You read a certain book, so can you recommend to that particular friend of yours to read? So it's people to people. People to content, right, what you have read, and therefore, and you can write certain abstract about your feedback on that book. And with this content, then it can be published, right, to other patrons. It's also people to content to content data mining, whereby we look at, okay, what are all those more popular e-books, physical books that the patrons have read, and make them recommendable to the other patrons. So using various technologies, right, that we are working out. Again, it's in the context of making ourselves relevant. Social media, mobile spaces, another big area that we cannot afford not to reach out to the patrons, because literally everybody now is using some form of social media to interact with each other. Just now I mentioned about Google. In the past we used to call it Gmable, G-Y-M, Gym, Google, Yahoo, and MSN. Right, but today I guess we know who are the stronger search engines out there. So reaching out, tapping on all this kind of search engine. We have our own mobile read. Now, mobile read basically contain short stories, local stories that you can download onto your mobile phones. It's meant to reach out to patrons for what we call instant gratification. All right, it's an app itself. You download it. You can read the stories at your own leisure time, all right, because it's highly downloadable. The other aspect is library in your pocket. All right, how do you have some of the very essential information and all captured into a particular small little handphone of yours? Right, for example, you can check your account. You can check what are the outstanding books that you still have. You can check. You can even read some of the. If let's say you have your iPad, all right, on your iOS. You can access to some of our e-resources. You can even access what we call our digitized newspapers. Right, we have worked with SPH to digitize some of the old newspapers, and now they are all available on the internet to do some searches, but because of copyright issues, in order to have the full access, you need to be present at some of the branches in order to have full access to the newspapers. Now, coming back to this context of this forum, I got to talk something about cloud computing. So we have reached out physical books in the physical libraries through Molly as our physical buses itself, self-service help desk, self-service kiosks, going to the social media. Now, the other aspect now we are going into is really cloud computing. We started cloud computing many years back with our web archival system, where we can crawl some of the .sg websites itself, right? Then the other endeavor that we went into cloud computing is really on our inquiry management system. Basically, what it does here is that whenever you have any queries, you call our contact center, and the contact center staff will enter all your queries, and then internally, you'll be routed to the relevant domain experts to answer the questions. All right, and this is using some form of a hybrid cloud. So there's a cloud provider out there who provide that particular application, and because of some sensitivity of some of the information, we do not store it out there in the cloud. Rather, anything that is sensitive is stored within our own environment. All right, and on a daily basis, we also replicate the data back to our own data center so that we have a full backup in the event that the cloud computing service provider is unable to perform to the service level, right, that we desire. So there is some kind of a contingency plan that we put in here. Within our own data center itself, we have also done a fair amount of virtualization. All right, in terms of server virtualization, we've been into this for almost close to 4 years. So there are a lot of learning experiences that we have got to embark upon. For example, in terms of performance, in terms of how to convince even our own application developers to adopt server virtualization. And we have been pretty successful in our whole learning experience. Today, literally, we have even enforced that server virtualization applications will be a preferred mode of operating. Right now, why do we go on to server virtualization? It helps us to speed up in terms of our acquisition of hardware, software, and of course in terms of disaster recovery. When a system is highly configurable to set up another machine within a very short span of time. Now, besides the hardware, the internal innovation and things like that, there's the other aspect of open innovation, which we call it open data, open web, whereby we expose our data to potential partners who would like to create new services to our patrons that align together with their own business initiatives that they sell. All right, so because we reckon that there's so much ideas that we can think about within our own organization, and therefore we leverage a strong part of it together with our potential partners, be individuals or organizations, right, that can leverage on our data. We'll pass that data to them so that they can come up with new services. Again, to ensure that there is continued relevance in the services that we provide to the patrons. Back to our own bread and butter business continuity. Now, it's very important that for business continuity management practices, whatever we do, try to embed it into the processes that we're doing, right, so that it becomes natural. As I mentioned, there are lots of physical libraries, right? If one library is down, another library, patrons can go to other libraries. So for our R&R purposes, it is something that is very common. It's being practiced every year because of the closing down of certain libraries and opening up of new libraries. So it is part and parcel of our whole process. We have also done, as I mentioned, reaching out to the patrons through various channels, various social media, etc., and partnering with them. However, where there are cases whereby, situations whereby it's not part of your process, therefore you have to continue to come out with, say, a yearly simulation exercise. And when you do business continuity exercises, make it interesting. All right. For example, we go by the zodiac sign. All right. So you have got resilient rat, continuity cow, tenacious tiger, and after every exercise that we did, I received a big deal. Basically, my guys spend overnight, and then they buy all the whatever celebration that we have, and tomorrow I'll get a big deal. Right. Just to support them with, make it fun. All right. Make it interesting. Get your stakeholders to participate in all these business continuity exercises. So our BCM journey goes as far back as 2007. During that time, in fact, even prior to 2007, we already have got a crisis management team. Right? We have a crisis management team. We do not have a BCM. So we started off with BCP, and BCP from where? From the IT. So IT department initiated BCP on our network operating center, NOC. And after we've shown the users how to conduct a BCP, it slowly moved on to various business groups. Right? And in fact, we hand over the baton to one of our users to lead the whole BCM in order to get the buy-in from them. Thereafter, with this BCP, and slowly it spreads over to the rest of the business groups. Today, I'm glad that, in fact, for this year, our business group, for the whole of NLB, we've achieved the SS540 standard on BCM within this year itself, for the whole of NLB. So with that, I thank you for listening.